Whereas I usually go with individual characters for unpopular opinion videos, I wanted to change it up and do an entire team. Now, this video might be a little longer than usual compared to other individual characters, just because there is a lot that people had to say. The characters that are particularly being chosen for a Justice League, which characters do fit, which characters don't. A lot of people talking about whether or not they like Cyborg or Martian Manhunter, which we've already talked about a lot before in their own individual unpopular opinion videos. But with that being said, let's see what some of you had to say on the Justice League. Let's start with Connor Medley, who says, I don't like how a lot of Superman villains become JL villains. DC writers should make new villains. Yes, I do think they have a Superman rogues gallery problem when it comes to actually being the rogues gallery for Justice League. Unfortunately, I do also believe that when you have someone like Superman, it is inevitable to make his villains a type of tiered character that allows them to go up against more than just Superman. I've talked about the power scaling issue in comic books before, how when you have one character like Superman, you always have to upgrade the people around him so that he still has a challenge in fighting those particular villains, and that's realistically what they've done with almost all his villains. And that's not even to say that they need to flat out build or create new characters. They can easily take the rogues galleries of characters like Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and use one of them as a threat to the Justice League. How about Ares for Wonder Woman, or any core of Lantern Rings from Green Lantern? You could even take characters like a Joker or a Bane and have them create some sort of mastermind strategic plan where they do find a way to crumble the Justice League. There's a lot of types of threats that the Justice League could go up against, and it doesn't always need to be Superman villains, which can offer the most untapped power that they've ever seen. Mr. Don't Overthink It. I think the Justice League has been really overshadowed by the Avengers in recent years. With Endgame being the second highest grossing film in history, it leaves things like the animated movies and the Snyder Cut in the dust for general audiences. Yeah, there's a lot of context to look at with this comment, especially the fact that with the Avengers being more popular than the Justice League maybe today, it's not as if the Avengers and the rest of the MCU created a billion-dollar franchise. They've created a billions of dollars franchise. The Avengers has become a household name of sorts when it never was even remotely to that level before they started making the MCU. At the end of the day, and I don't know how many comic fans would argue with this, but I do think it is really easy to sit here and say the Justice League is absolutely better than the Avengers, even to simply looking at the roster. You've got Batman and Superman, the two first superheroes of all time. You've got Wonder Woman, the first inspirational female superhero of all time. And then you have a character like the Flash, who has really picked up in popularity over the years. I think as individual characters teaming up together, they are definitely much more interesting than the Avengers, but honestly, once you get to it first in film, very often film is king, and it's also the key to the utmost success, and it has definitely beat the Justice League to it. It also does not help that Warner Brothers gave us a half-assed Joss Whedon Justice League, which, oh my god, it's one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life, and for some reason, they wanted to fight people on giving us the Snyder Cut, which is just infinitely better. A 4-hour epic, delivered every part of the Justice League that you would have wanted from that world in the first place. And since the general audience is the biggest audience out there, you definitely have to blame Warner Brothers for their absolutely abhorrent handling of the DC franchise and the Justice League as a whole, because many people today would absolutely take the Avengers over the Justice League, which is very unfortunate, because when you look at simply just symbols of Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman, you don't just think of them as individual characters, you do also think of the Justice League. And it is a shame to see them play second fiddle when the Justice League, in my opinion, is by far the most popular team-up group in history. Scrublord Steven, here's my hot take. I'd be perfectly fine if at some point they didn't use Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman on the League. Maybe keep one of them, but I'd rather see other characters in the spotlight, like Dr. Light, Black Canary, Martian Manhunter, Hawkgirl, Zatanna, Green Arrow, The Atom, Aquaman, Red Tornado, Vixen, Katana, Halo, Wildcat, Ragman, Mr. Terrific, Atom Smasher, and Plastic Man in the spotlight. I see what you're saying. I agree with some of the characters here for sure. And there are a lot of other comments on this post that are talking about the utilization of other characters who do deserve the spotlight. But here's what I have to say about this. The Justice League is not the Justice League without Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman at the very least. I also think Flash and Green Lantern are staples to the team almost just as much as them, that if they are not there, the Justice League is no longer the same. I think where you get a lot of the leeway in the team is when you can start to play around with the last two members. If the Justice League is meant to be a 7-member team, I think you can toy around with who your 6th and 7th member will be, which is exactly why for some of the characters you've listed here and some of the other characters other people listed in their comments, it is fine to get a Justice League formed from these characters, but maybe not the main Justice League. That's why we branch out into other teams. That way we don't always need to tamper with what the main Justice League is. I just feel as if the main league is so influential to the DC universe that if you removed those core characters, you might as well just make a completely brand new team at that point. A lot of people like when Martian Manhunter and Aquaman are in the team, and personally, I think Martian Manhunter is another staple to the team. At the end of the day, I just think there is those 5 characters that are an absolute staple, and you can't really move them. Denzo. I don't like the idea that every superhero team should treat each other as a family, like Fantastic Four or even the Teen Titans, more or less. With heroes that have a lot of their own stories, they should be treating other Justice League members as close to very close co-workers at best, Batman and Superman. Heroes like Aquaman and Wonder Woman have a whole different world to take care of. They are realistically too busy to treat each other as siblings or family. This is definitely going to be seen as a hot take. One that I do kind of agree with you here. I think the family trope of all these superheroes just destined and inevitable to get along with one another and be best friends with one another can get boring every now and then. I just want to see a group of superheroes get together who know they have a job to do, but at the end of the day, you ain't gonna be coming over for Thanksgiving dinner. Obviously, there are some characters that we do need to treat that way. Someone like Batman and Superman. They, in my opinion, don't just become best friends, they also realize that they might be the brothers they never had. But I like your example of Aquaman and Wonder Woman. How likely would it be for them to be great friends with one another? Would that really make much sense? It's almost like sports, especially for me since I'm a big fan of football. If you look at a 53-man roster, not every person on that team are going to be great friends with one another. I do think a big reason why we want to view these characters as such close-knit friends or family is because they are a very small percentage of the population who have these extraordinary gifts and these powers, and there's only so many people around them who will understand the struggle of what being a superhero is, even when they have people around them in their family or their other friends who don't have these superpowers. they might not fully understand exactly what they're going through, so they need other like-minded people. And maybe that is why we get so many writers and stories who try to make these characters so closely knit to one another. Mr. Watts Hood, here's an actual unpopular opinion I debate fans about. The Hall of Justice is way better than the Watchtower. This might be a 50-50 situation. Some people might like this, some people won't. I have to say I disagree. I like the Hall of Justice. I think it's cool. I just think the Watchtower is so awesome because it's a whole other level. Oh, you're creating a base for us, Batman? Where's it gonna be? Oh yeah, a homestead in space, hovering over Earth, so we can always have a constant eye on the protection of our world. I also feel that the Watchtower gives them this certain power because we know that they don't often work with the government. They don't have any governmental ties the way a team like the Avengers might have. So the fact that you have these superheroes that are propping up out of nowhere all over the world, they've created their own seat of power, hovering over our planet. That's pretty badass. Pattongilbert. The Justice League should have more internal arguments like the Avengers, or back when it was the Justice League International. When characters are fundamentally opposed but still have to function as a team, it's just so much more interesting. I think this kind of goes back to the best friends family vibe. Maybe we don't want the Justice League to necessarily be butting heads in that way, but I do have to agree. I think when you have fundamental differences between certain characters, it can make their relationship a little more interesting, especially when the fact that those arguments don't pull them away, it actually brings them closer together. There are characters on the Justice League that I don't think would fundamentally agree with, say, someone like Batman or Aquaman, or maybe even Wonder Woman. There are bound to be disagreements, and just like any family or groups of friendships, there are disagreements in that as well, so it could definitely work. Shroom Fruit. I really strongly dislike large Justice League teams. Shows or comics where they have like 20 members is absurd to me. Any more than 10 is pushing it. They feel so much less special when there's so many of them. I agree. I don't like how big these teams can get. Realistically, when you look at the main Justice League, this team is already such a powerhouse with even just 6 members, let alone a 7th, an 8th, a 9th, or a 10th. That is why we need more branched off versions of the Justice League, like the Justice League Dark or Justice League International. That's also why I think the Justice League Unlimited cartoon handled that idea so well. Whereas they were an entire Justice League, they also found ways to split all the characters apart so that they weren't always all working together at once and taking down one crime or one threat altogether, as that would just be way too ridiculous. Also, joining the Justice League, in my opinion, is a prestige. It is an honor. It is not something a character should so easily be able to do or join in the first place. It's like a Jedi Council. You could be a Jedi all you want, but the minute you've made the council, you do now know you are forever one of the most legendary superheroes that will ever exist in all of history. And I think the Justice League does need to obtain that prestigious order once again. Dithang, here's my hot take. Batman should never be a part of the Justice League, at least not officially. He's a vigilante, of course, just like everyone else, but many of his storylines involve him in opposition to a corrupt police force. Sometimes Batman is framed for a crime he didn't do, and he goes on the run. To alleviate any public and administrative pressure from his teammates, he should participate in a covert capacity. Leaving Batman out of the public roster also allows Bruce Wayne to donate to the Justice League without the extra link between Batman and his secret identity. So I see what you're saying here, and I do like the idea of Batman only partaking in the Justice League when he wants to partake in it. I also like this idea that when the Justice League thinks of themselves as a team, they often think, oh, we have 7 members, and one of those main time members is Batman. Batman, when he thinks of it, says to himself, I join them when they need help, but other than that, it is a 6-member team, and I am not part of it. Even though deep down he really is. There were actually quite a few comments of people who said they don't like Batman being on the Justice League, which is kind of why I took your comment, because there is just a little more context behind it. I understand maybe the reasoning being that Batman is the grounded character. He is the highest level of all street level characters in almost all comic book history. However, the argument becomes if Batman can stand up to some of these gods and even be the reason why he is defeating some of these threats that the rest of the Justice League can't take down on their own, how is it that he is struggling with his own human tiered villains that Batman could easily solve within the snap of a finger? And I understand that complaint. This all comes down to basically the writers telling the story they want to tell and to fitting reality around that particular story. That is just what comic books have become. One day, a character is going to be all high level powerful, and then the next day, because the story requires it, that character, let's say, has to lose all their powers out of nowhere by the random. It's just how it works now. And Batman, over recent history, and you could maybe even stretch this back to the 70s or 80s, he has been making a name for himself as the human amongst gods, or even simply put, the human god. The character who is capable of standing amongst people like Superman and Wonder Woman, because he is just simply no regular human. Batman has become such a high tier character at that level that it would just be too difficult to strip him down from that now. Also, as an extremely, and I put that all in capitals, extremely biased Batman fan, I love how overpowered he can be. I'm not even gonna lie. Dufresne Media, the Bruce Timm Justice League from the 2001 to 2006 cartoon shows Justice League Unlimited, is the Justice League. The monumental impact it had and still has to this day is astounding. Most people, I think, would agree that additions, replacements like Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl are better choices in the league than Aquaman and Cyborg. I can't see any other league roster topping that one from the show, even down to Jon Stewart instead of Hal Jordan or Wally West instead of Barry. This is the peak Justice League roster. There might be some hot takes in this comment, but overall, I don't even know if it really is a hot take. I just had to put it in this video because I absolutely agree. The magic they created with that cartoon, the way the Justice League was immortalized from the original show, and how they found ways to better it and even involve other lesser known characters in Unlimited. Like I said, pure magic. It's wonderful how they were capable of captivating everyone and creating the almost perfect Justice League storylines and rosters and atmosphere. Hawkgirl, I love for the show. I have personally never really liked Hawkgirl being a member of the league outside of the show, but still, in show, great. Aquaman, I'm not a fan of him on the league, my personal opinion. Cyborg, I thought he was all right, not compared to a lot of what people commented on here. A lot of people actually don't like it at all. Jon Stewart, and it's because of the show, I've always been a fan of him over Hal Jordan, but either one of them, I'm absolutely okay with it. Then you also got Wally West and Barry Allen. Yeah, I also have to admit, Wally West is my personal favorite because of the show too. but I also think Wally West is just a better Flash than Barry Allen, and that's why I prefer his variation. Whether or not you agree with the members who should be part of the Justice League, I do think we can all agree at the end of the day, however, that this variation of the Justice League is the one that brought a lot of joy to us, and just in general works because of how well crafted the show was. Now it is time for my unpopular opinion. This is an opinion that even I myself go back and forth on quite often. Obviously, with the main Justice League, we all love the other variations of Justice League teams that branches off from them. We also love this idea that if the day comes where Batman's no part of the league, or Superman, or Flash, or maybe one of them die and someone needs to take over, we bring in a Nightwing to be the Batman, or a Supergirl to be the Superman, or a Donna Troy to be the Wonder Woman, and so on. And I think to a particular level, that does work. However, I personally think that the day Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and whoever other 2 members you want to use, when they fully come to terms with retiring, maybe they've all died or whatever it might be, I think that is actually when the Justice League dies. I think the Justice League is them. I know it can be very fun to sit here and think what characters would take up the future version of the Justice League. I just don't think you do that at all. I think you move on from the name, from the term, and you try and find another superhero-esque team name to operate from. The Justice League is so deep rooted into those characters that if they are no longer there anymore, it is no longer the Justice League. Imagine they just saved an entire city and everyone's like, oh my goodness, thanks for helping us. Who are you guys? And they're like, we're the Justice League. And they're like, no, the Justice League was Batman, Superman, and everyone else. Who are you guys? They're like, we are the Justice League. We're the new variation of them. Yeah, scream it from the rooftops, buddy. Say you're the Justice League all you want. You don't look like it. You're not them. You're not those characters. Who are you? Realistically, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. If they brought in new characters to take on the new future of the Justice League, I'd accept it. I'm not that hell-bent on the opinion. But there it is, my unpopular opinion and some of your unpopular opinions on the Justice League. So I hope you guys like this one. It was a lot of fun changing it up for a team up instead of an individual character. So if there are other unpopular opinions on the Justice League that you didn't get to voice, go into the comments down below and do it now. And also comment other team ups of characters you would like me to do this same treatment for. And other individual characters, because we are going to be going back to that as well. That is all I have for you on this one, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it. And until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.